The global economy is likely slowing sharply this year, hampered by high interest rates, this repercussion of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the lingering effect of coronavirus pandemic. Now, that's according to the latest outlook of the World Bank and 189-country anti-poverty agency, which estimates that the international economy will expand with just 2.1% in 2023 after growing 3.1% in 2022. Still, the bank's latest global economic prospect report marks an upgrade from its previous forecast in January. That estimate has envisioned worldwide growth of just 1.7% this year, but the global economy has proved surprisingly resilient in the face of higher borrowing costs, and the World Bank predicts that growth will accelerate to 2.4% in 2024. Now, concerning Nigeria, the Brentwood Financial Institution warned that Nigeria's economic growth is too slow to address the challenge of extreme poverty in the country, hereby citing macroeconomic challenges such as high inflation, foreign exchange shortages, and shortages of banknotes caused by currency redesign as a reason for the 2.8% growth economic growth rate for 2023. Let's break down this figure and make more economic sense of it. And to do this, I'm now being joined virtually by a research analyst from Budget Foundation, Oludamilola Onemano. But I beg your pardon if I didn't get that pronunciation right. But then again, thank you and it's glad having you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's Oludamilola Onemano.
Onemano, I guess I got that right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's get talking, Damilola. Meanwhile, the bank has retained. What is your reaction to start with the outlook of the World Bank GDP report globally for 2023 and 2024?
So I would say it's not something that's surprising, because we, as a country, Nigeria, and looking at it on the global scale, we are yet to recover from the turmoils of the pandemic. Pandemic had a lot of effects on a lot of countries. And then post-pandemic, we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So that has also had its impact on a lot of economies. As much as it's just Ukraine and Russia that are involved, it has its multiplier effect on how it affects every other country, whether in Europe, Africa, America, and so on. And then we've had a lot of countries experiencing persistent high inflation. So these things are put together, affecting economic growth. It's more of it is time for it to happen that economic growth will experience a downturn. So it's not something that's surprising. It's just, however, something that policymakers need to look into to adjust and address to ensure that they are more productive in the coming months of 2023 and also for 2024.
All right, thank you for that submission. But still talking about the global economy, earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund also projected that 1/3 of the world economy will fall into recession. What measures should both fiscal and monetary authorities in the emerging markets and developing economies be putting in place to remain resilient and avert this looming economic crisis?
Okay, so yes, IMF had come up with that and saying that 1/3 of emerging countries would experience a recession. And this is indeed concerning because, first of all, we are already in Nigeria falls indeed within this category. We are trying our best to ensure that we are moving, we are emerging, and then we are developing on a daily basis. So when we keep falling back into a state of recession, we are more or less pulling down back the progress or the ladder of development. But there are some things that governments, not just Nigerian governments, can do to ease the effects of recession or avert such a crisis from happening. And one can be monetary policy flexibility in terms of how is the monetary system, which is the central banks, regulating or making its interest rates flexible enough to ensure that there is encouraged borrowing, there is encouraged investment, there's adequate liquidity of cash in the banking system. Another could be fiscal stimulus or support, which we usually call the palliatives. These are like welfare, social programs, and infrastructure that helps to boost economic activities. It also helps to stimulate employment and opportunities. So fiscal stimulus in terms of investing or government spendings in infrastructure sectors that have a multiplier effect in job creations, in productivity, and in terms of the wellness of the individuals in the country. So if my productivity is enhanced and production cost is reduced, I'm sure that prices will fall, and then it will also increase the amount of disposable income that are within people's grasp. And once this is increased, it also increases their consumption. And once consumption is increased, one way or the other, it stimulates economic growth or economic activities.
Okay, Dami, thank you for that. Now, you've just brought us home to Nigeria. Let's quickly look at that. The World Bank said that our gross domestic product is not strong enough to lift its people out of poverty. How does this come to you? What is your reaction to this? And what should the new government be doing to cushion this effect?
Okay, so yes, Nigeria has a massive population, and out of that massive population, we have quite a significant number that are extremely poor, and it is undoubtedly a big challenge because the administration, especially this new administration, needs to take several measures to ensure that they tackle this head on. Because if we keep having more people fall below the poverty line, it simply means economic activities will stall. It also simply means that economic growth will stall. So things that the administration can do is to have like a proper policy. This policy is meant to prioritize vulnerable segments of the population by including expanding social protection programs, having conditional cash transfers, providing direct support to those living in extremely poor areas, job creation and economic opportunities. So to lift people out of poverty in the long term, government needs to invest in sectors that have great multiplier effects of creating jobs. The government needs to focus on areas such as agriculture, manufacturing services, and areas that require skill development and vocational training that will enhance employability. Another would be education and skill development, infrastructural development, agricultural and rural development. Lastly, I think we should also focus mostly on good governance and anti-corruption measures, because these are the ways that a government that is pro-poor and wants to enhance the livelihood or the living standards of the citizens would take.
Talking about population, Dami, I'm really concerned, and I want to believe that you are too, that we have a population growth rate that is higher than our GDP. What danger does this portend to our economy?
Okay, so this situation has several dangers and implications. One can be a very high rate of unemployment and underemployment. Nigeria already has over 33% rate of unemployment. And because of this, with the high population growth rate, we have our population skyrocketing every single day. The failure for our GDP to commensurate with our population, it will simply mean we will continue to have more people who are unemployed, and these more people who are unemployed will continue to boost the poverty ratio that we have in the country. It will continue to also put a strain on this resource and infrastructure that we have, because if the GDP is not growing, that is, if the economy is not growing, there is limited amount of money which would be in terms of resources that can be allocated to these citizens, and in terms of infrastructural investment, there will be a limitation to it. And because of that limitation, the population that is massively growing and the GDP which is not growing, or the economy which is not growing, there will be so much strain on that, and then it will give us a hike in poverty. It will also give us a hike in inequality. There will be a stall in trying to achieve, or a struggle in achieving most of the sustainable development goals. And because Nigeria's structure has not really captured the informal sector, many people will fall back to the informal sector because that is the way in which they can cope in their businesses or in the business environment.
Okay, Dami, let's look at some of the macroeconomic challenges that we're being faced in the country today. Now, amid all of this, the World Bank has retained Nigeria's economic growth rate, forecast at 2.8%, and then 2.8 for 2023, and then 3.2 for 2024. Now, amid some of these burning economic issues, rising inflation, the ripple effect of fuel subsidy removal on the economy, and also the operating environment, do you think we have what it takes to sustain this growth trajectory?
As at the fourth quarter of last year, Nigeria experienced a 3.52% economic growth. This year, first quarter was a 2.3%. And the projected economic growth in the budget of 2023 for Nigeria was a 3.75, sorry. And I'm sure they got that projection off of the fact that in the fourth quarter they had a 3.5. And if in first quarter they're experiencing a 2.3, I don't think the World Bank's projection is far off, because a 2.3 to a 2.8 is not something that is achieved within the twinkle of an eye. And why do we have such a low economic growth rate in the first quarter? First, we had very persistent high inflation. Secondly, we've had fuel scarcity in the beginning of the year, so that also put a strain on economic activities. Then we also had the cash scarcity, which was brought about by the redesign of the naira. All of these things have put a strain on economic growth. The present administration, which is the new administration, has a lot to do in terms of restructuring the government, or restructuring the way our potentials are to overcome these projections. The projections are not cast in stone. These are projections that can either go either ways. It can be good, it can be bad. So it could get better. Our economy could go better than what was projected, or it could go worse. But it also depends on how well or how better Nigeria or the present administration invests in the non-oil sectors and invest in critical infrastructures, and also try in a way that they can implement policies and reforms that will promote diversification and reliance for economic stability.
Okay, Dami, before I let you go now, finally, there seems to be a lot on the table for the incoming Minister of Finance, and perhaps Ishe has that portfolio as well as the coordinating Minister of the Economy. What are your expectations for her in tackling all of these macroeconomic challenges that we are being faced with right now, so that we can get that renewed hope that this current administration promised us during the electionary period?
Okay, so Nigeria has had, over the years, has tried to accelerate diversification. I think more needs to be done in terms of that. Diversification in terms of agriculture, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of transport networks, and all of that. Nigeria needs to put in a whole lot more in promoting the non-oil sector. Services, technology needs to be able to aid productivity and needs to be able to attract investments, because if we're not attracting investments into the country, then we are going to be having a slow call to development or to economic growth. Infrastructural development is something that as the minister, she's also going to be overseeing budget and planning. It's something that they need to be able to plan towards. For investments in infrastructure, one, is to aid productivity. Secondly, is to attract investment and it will reduce the cost of production. So if I have good transport networks, it also reduces the cost of transportation of goods and services within the country. If I have technology that aids production, it improves productivity for me. If there is good power generation, it helps production. And all of this at the end of the day boosts the lives of our citizens, it brings about a better living standard. It helps to build or create better job opportunities in different sectors: transportation, power, telecoms, digital infrastructure, and all of that. And then because Nigeria has a critical, which is security, building or creating a social safety net for citizens, especially in times of subsidy like this, will also aid our economic growth.
Oludamilola Onemanu, I believe I got that right this time around. Research analyst at Budget Foundation. Thank you so much for being a part of this show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, still to come on the program. More reactions have continued to trail the scandal behind the controversial Nigerian Air project, as there are calls for the immediate arrest and prosecution of former Africa over the failed national carrier. We will bring you more details of this development and other issues facing the Nigerian aviation sector in a moment after this time out.